My name is Bellany Teklu. I teach 5th grade at Fair Oaks Elementary School in Cobb County, Georgia. Our school is considered what in the East Coast is called a Title I school, here in Georgia, a high-risk school. Some of the children in this classroom have not seen their parents because their parents are in jail. Some of them have parents who are substance abusers. Some of them have parents who, for one reason or another, are not able to provide them with the appropriate child care and address their needs, and as a result have been reported to the Children and Family Services. Some of them are emotionally abused, which comes out in their writing. And some of them have parents who simply don't understand how education can help. I have chosen reading to be the venue by which these children will find a voice. I believe that if they are able to connect with the characters in books, where authors have written about the feelings of these characters and make these strong connections, they will get hope. And at the same time, they will learn that they can access the mainstream by adopting a lot of things that we find in books, formal language, for example. Okay, today we're going to have a short mini lesson to talk about how some of the books we've read have changed us. I'm going to start out by talking about how one book I read in this class has changed me. And I want you to share if you want to add anything to what I say. My independent reading session in my classroom begins with a mini lesson where I teach for about 10 to 15 minutes. That is followed by silent sustained reading, where children take their books, and in some cases pillows, to designated or self-selected spots actually throughout the room, and they sit down and read, using different strategies, a book of their own choice. Now, the book that I've been reading, which I finished, is Behind the Bedroom Wall. It's by Laura E. Williams, and I know that some of you in this class have read it. I chose this book because I was interested in finding out what was behind the bedroom wall. And as I read it at different times, I found myself getting gripped by what was going on. And I'll read you some of my post-it notes. At one point I said, "My heart is beating fast. I'm wondering if Hans, who's one of the soldiers, will find what he's looking for in Karina's bedroom." This is my post-it note. So the soldier goes into this young German girl's bedroom looking for something. So at that point, I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? So remember that this book, at different points, excited me and made me think about it. I also made a connection to times when I was growing up in Ethiopia, and there were times when soldiers used to search different people's houses. So I thought, wow, this is something that hasn't just happened to me, it's happened to another girl living in a different country. As you can see, I made many post-its, and by the time I finished the book, I thought deeply about how some people in the world have had a difficult time in their lives.
I have a connection to make. I think it was last year, but somebody had made an anonymous call and said that something really bad had happened to my house, and like a month and a half later, a bunch of cops came and searched our house for any weapons or anything, and they couldn't find anything. So I know how Karina feels in the book, because they searched her room and my house was searched.
Okay, what book are you reading so everyone in the class sees?
Behind the Bedroom Wall by Laura E. Williams.
Okay, so you're reading the same book. Okay, that's good. Assad.
Some cops, they still do it today, because one cop, my brother was staying at home, and he 14 years old, named Benny. He was staying home, and my sister Portia, she always try to be like the grown-up, and she opened the door, and my brother Benny said, "Do you have a warrant to come in?" He said no, and so he closed the door, and the cop came through the back door, and then my little sister started screaming, "Benny, let him in!" And she had got in trouble because the cops wasn't allowed to come in, but they did anyway.
That was a good connection. He talked about what cops did back then, to really soldiers in the story, and what cops are able to do now. So I like that connection that you made. Jefferson.
It's not a connection, but when Jews used to hide from the Germans, and right now Jews are trying to fight the Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Palestine?
Yeah, Palestine.
One of the ways we progressed throughout the year is by systematically going through different strategies that readers use. We first started out the year asking questions, and we would approach our books with questions in mind. Then we tried to answer those questions in the text that we read, and talked about whether our predictions and questions were answered or not answered. We moved on from that to talking about connections, slowly by starting out with connections that connected to our lives, text to self, then moving on to text when our readership expanded, and then now we're moving on to connections to the world as we become more aware of the world beyond us through books as well as other written materials. Okay. I want you to hold your thoughts for a minute. We have about 1 minute to go before we go to read. What I'd like you to think about is, Assad shared how he can connect what happened in Laura E. Williams' book and in his own life. What I want you to think about as you read is, beyond the connection, I know you've made connections to your books. How has this changed how you think? This book has helped me understand the history of the Jewish people. Reading books like Martin Luther King helps me understand about civil rights and how African Americans in this country have struggled for freedom. We did a play on Harriet Tubman, and she talked a lot about freedom. What do the books that you're reading say to you that you can use in your own lives? So I want you to take your books and go read for about 30 minutes. I'll put the timer on. So go ahead and choose a spot on the rug. Take your pillows and get settled. Silent reading for this class is not just about reading silently. It is developing the habit of selecting a quiet spot, settling down in a comfortable position to really enjoy literature. This is something that is really uncommon for these children, like I said before, whose backgrounds are very disordered. And therefore, this may be the only time that they get a chance to spend some time reading, thinking about their reading, thinking about how they read, and a time for them to come to me and share, more especially, their connections and how this book is changing the way they think or changing the way they're learning. Mm-hmm. Roberto, can I see you for a minute, please? I want to do a short interview. I've been doing it with all of the children, and I didn't get a chance to talk to you about your reading. These are the reading conferences that I do. You know, I've done one with a lot of children. So it's an interview about reading. And I'd like to know, for example, first question is, why do you like reading?
I like reading because it shows me when I read, I learn new words so I can make my vocabulary better.
Okay.
So I won't have to say ain't and all that stuff that are not improper words.
Okay. Anything else?
And I read to get exciting. Like when I'm bored, I read a book so I can get excited or something.
What do you mean?
Some scary books, like somebody sneaks by behind you and you get excited. You get scared.
Okay, what book are you reading now?
I'm reading A Tale of Two Cities.
Who is that by?
Charles. I don't remember.
Why don't you bring the book? Because I'm so interested. I try to give each child individual attention. It's not just go read a book and we'll talk about it, but it is I am intimately interested in what you're reading and how you're feeling about it. Because the whole point is that it becomes a personalized experience and it later on becomes internalized.
Not such thing, it turned out coffee. Manly sat on the end of his bunk with his hands in his lap. The largest man I've ever seen in my life, looking at me with his strange wet eyes. Captain, he said, "What's up, big boy? I need to see you." I made a connection to when I was in 4th grade. These 5th graders used to talk about me. They used to call me big boy and stuff. And I used to get offended, but now it don't bother me because I like who I am, and he made me a special way, and he can't make mistakes, so I like the way I am.
When he smiled, his car.
What book are you reading now?
The Last Battle.
Okay, how do you like it?
It's good.
Why did you pick his books?
I picked his books because when I read his first book, it was real good because it started off as he was a poor boy and he moved up to like a king. He became a prince because he was captured, and then he was raised by a fisherman, and he never knew that he was actually real royalty.
Okay.
And he escaped, and in the end of the book, he ended up being a prince, and he had a brother.
What part about this book did you connect to?
I can connect it to like when George Washington, he started off as a little boy, he had chopped down a cherry tree, and he wasn't that good. And he, at the end of his life, he didn't even know it, but he became the first president. So he kind of started off real small, then moved up to like bigger leagues.
That's right. Good connection. What kind of a connection was that?
Text to the world.
Yeah, that's right. Text the world. Good.